All right, sweet. What's up? What's happening? Welcome back to the Minor League Take. I'm your host, Brad Case, and on this week we have Quinn Brodey.
Hello, how's it going? Happy to be here.
So Quinn's had a very interesting journey the past couple of years, and really excited to dive into it. But I think the best place to start, where I like to start with everybody, is what did high school baseball look like for Quinn Brodey?
High school baseball, okay, great. High school baseball was in LA, grew up in LA, went to high school at Loyola High School in Los Angeles. High school baseball for me looked like I initially was on the JV team for, I think it was a couple weeks into the regular season. And
is this your junior year or freshman year? Okay.
Yeah. So my freshman year, I got put on the JV team. And I was there for a little while, and I think it was a couple weeks into the season that I got called up to varsity, which was awesome, and got an opportunity to play a little bit here and there, not a ton by any means, but at this point I was pitching and playing outfield, did a little bit of both, and then sophomore year started the year on varsity. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but there were a few years that there was a year or two that I was all CIF, which is CIF. CIF is the, I don't know if it's just California.
It's like the conference?
Yeah, it's the conference or whatever.
Were you mostly, were you starting as a freshman?
As a freshman, I probably got a couple starts.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how that year went. But then more or less from sophomore year on, I was in there, and I was grateful that I could more or less assume that my name was going to be in the lineup, and I was contributing, which was awesome. And we had a great team. We had a lot of good players, older guys that helped us out, and then my class had a lot of good players. So, we had a lot of fun. So,
I mean, that's definitely impressive to be able to, at least the physical changes that I went through from 14 to 17 was a huge jump. I didn't get much taller, but I filled out a lot more, which I certainly needed. Yeah. And then, I mean, to be able to get some playing time on varsity at 14, 15 years old it's hard. It's scary.
Yeah, it was definitely intimidating jumping in there with guys that were for sure a lot more physically mature than me. I would say that I wasn't someone who saw any kind of huge change physically in high school. I was always a little bit taller, always a little more physically mature probably than my peers, and then obviously people catch up, but I didn't have any kind of crazy growth spurt or anything.
Were you pitching or were you hitting?
I was doing both.
You're doing both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember if I was probably relieving, starting here and there. However it works in high school, you just throw whenever you throw. Yeah.
High school is more just like pitch by committee. It's like, all right, we're all available today. Let's see who can get this. Yeah, we can get this done for us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I went back and trying to do my research for this and try to understand a little bit of how the finer details of how your career went. I mean, I look at your time at Stanford. Well, first let's talk about Stanford, actually, about about even just getting the opportunity to play there. How'd the recruiting go to get into a really prestigious place like Stanford?
Yeah, for sure. So as high school went on, I'm sure like we all did, went to the showcases, went to some different camps. Stanford's recruiting process was a little bit unique in that they didn't travel to tournaments and showcases as much as other schools did.
Okay.
They have a huge camp that they run every summer. That I think they at that point they relied, not heavily, but they used that camp for their own recruiting to a large extent. So I went to that camp my junior, heading in, summer after sophomore year of high school. I went to that camp.
Yeah.
I think it was, and I think it was that summer. Not important. One of those two summers, sophomore, junior summer. And that's where I had been talking to them a little bit here and there. I think they'd maybe seen me play at a tournament or two in Arizona or something like that. But I think that camp is where I was able to get in front of them, stand out, meet them, shake their hands, put a face to a name, that kind of thing. After that is when we stayed in more constant contact. The pitching coach at the time, Rusty Filter, who is now the head coach at Santa Clara, he and I stayed in more close contact after that. And then I went on an unofficial visit. Yeah, this was unofficial visit before my junior season started in high school. And while I was there, I'll never forget it. I was at a restaurant with the head coach and the assistant coach and my mom and myself. and he gave me the pitch and offered me the whatever they offered me, and it was, of course, we were both just totally
blown away.
Totally blown away.
I mean, I gotta imagine to be a recruiting coordinator at Stanford's gotta be a really fucking easy job.
Easy and fun because you're literally like giving these kids their dream. Like it's unbelievable.
It's a beautiful campus. For anyone that hasn't been there, it's a beautiful campus. Yeah. It's world-class education that everybody knows about, and then you're going to get the best facilities along with it. I actually did that camp as well. Really? I probably did it the year after you, because I think you graduated high school a year before me. So, yeah.
Yes, you know what it's like.
So I was there, and I'm like, dude, this thing is awesome. You go, you get a Stanford jersey with your name on the back.
Yeah. Oh, they do the pitch pretty well, yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah. Like, every single kid was like, yeah, I want to go here. And I think when I attended, it was more of a, like, my dad knew someone through work who I think he actually knows the son-in-law of who the head coach at Stanford was, which I don't know. I don't remember the guy's name.
It was Mark Marquis for 40-plus years, who was my head coach for all 3 years.
Yes. Yeah. So I only got to go because of like an in that we had, and me and Dad were like, yeah, sure, let's go. It actually reminds me too. Was the pitching coach you were talking about? Was he an older guy?
No, Rusty's not too old. Rusty's probably. Oh God! At this point, I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Obviously, no. He can't be more than 50, 55.
Okay. All right. I'm thinking of someone else then, because there was someone who I think he was just kind of like working with the pitchers one day, and he gave me like a mental trick that I still use to this day, and he was telling us a story about when he was a high school pitching coach. He went out to the mound, and their like star pitcher, who like everybody at school loved, like. He was having a terrible game when they really needed him to like show up that day. Yeah. And this coach said he walked out there, looks at him and goes, you excited for the dance this weekend? And the guy's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he was like, all right, you got a guy on first base. Let's get 2 here. Awesome. And then whatever happened in that kid's brain, like it just cleared it. Loosened him up, totally was fine, and then the coach said that the kid shoved the rest of the day. And I've always used that. I've always used as like, okay, I'm gonna like step back, think about something I totally shouldn't be thinking about right now, and then get yourself going again. And it works. It's a really bizarre thing. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So you commit in the middle of your junior year.
Yeah, I committed right before the baseball season started. So it was January, February or something. I think it was January, and. Then I played my senior year at Loyola, and I still had to get into school. Yeah. Which was their standards are not. Yeah. I was a good student, but their standards are not the same for athletes as they are for non-athletes.
Which is the best.
Yeah, and it has to be the case for. Probably a lot of athletes, but especially for guys trying to go to Stanford, like the people that we're competing against academically are really, really, really talented. Yeah. So it's not a given that you're going to get in. Like you still definitely have to, they encourage you to take APs. They encourage you to make sure that your schedule looks strong. They want to make sure that your application is strong enough to get you in. They of course have their levers they can pull and whatever, but you have to get in. And I remember I got in sometime during my senior year, finally got my acceptance letter, which was great. So then it was like signed, sealed, delivered, like good to go. Yeah. I wasn't too worried about it. Like I was in honors classes, APs, my GPA was good. My SAT and ACT were good. So I wasn't too concerned about it, but it was good just to get it like finally taken care of.
Get it. Once you get that, it's like the final seal. It's like, all right, now you guys can't take this back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good. Just don't do anything stupid.
So for people that don't know, I didn't start the podcast off this way by introducing you this way, but you've been an outfielder. Yeah. That's what you spend most of your time doing. But I did look and see that you did pitch your freshman year at Stanford, which is pretty cool. Yep. Was the plan always to be a two-way going into it?
They did. They recruited me as a two-way pitcher outfielder, with no major plan of this is how much you're going to do this is how much you're going to do this. It was just like you show up on campus and you just got to figure it out, find a way to get in the lineup.
Yeah.
Freshman year I think I had a little over 10 innings, something like that. I had maybe a start on a Tuesday and some relief appearances and got my feet wet.
You did solid. You did good, especially as a freshman playing at Stanford. Like that, those are good numbers that you posted.
Yeah, I don't remember what my numbers were. I do remember my first outing I think it was our first series of the year against Indiana at home. And you've been to Sunken Diamond, beautiful field, beautiful.
Yeah.
It gets very dewy and kind of wet there at night.
Oh, okay.
So I came into the game, tie game, whatever, close game, something like that. I got out of a leverage situation, clean, 1 out or whatever it was. I think I got a hit that game. I might have got my first hit that game or the next game. I can't remember. But then I came back out for the next inning, and I just completely like yipped a ball down the line on a bunt. Like someone bunted, the ball's wet. Wasn't particularly comfortable with that anyways. Just mailed it down the line. The guy got to second or third or whatever. Then they did it again. I mailed another one.
Fuck.
We ended up losing. I'm obviously just devastated. And so I don't remember what the stats were, but I remember that one for sure. But
that one, that's gonna stay. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
definitely gonna pull coach aside after that and be like, hey, can we work on this a couple more times, please?
Oh yeah, I had to figure that out real quick. But yeah, pitched my freshman year, and then got a pretty good amount of playing time in the outfield too. We had, you got to find a way to get in there, and I think we had a guy who. A junior at the time who got hurt a little bit. I got to slide in. I had some success. So even when he got healthy, I was still kind of the fourth guy in the outfield that got mixed in. And it was good. Freshman year, I got a chance to play a lot, which was great.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's got to be definitely daunting. I went to a D2, so like it was definitely a lesser degree, but at Stanford, a big D1 school, I got to imagine the pressure really pours on, especially when you're in that kind of level. Did you face that? Did you feel that at all, or was it pretty? You got there and you knew that you could run with everybody from the go.
I knew that I always believed that I could be a part of what was going on in the field. Like I definitely believe that I could hang for sure. But like anywhere, whether it's high school, D1, D2, D3, like there is that when you first show up, there's that feeling of, can I cut it? Like, these guys are older, these guys are better, these guys have been around. Like, that's a draft prospect. That guy's this, that guy's that. So it does take a minute to just remember, like, it's baseball. Like, you've been playing forever. It's going to take a while to adjust to the speed of the game, and your body's adjusting, and you're adjusting to a new life at school and away from home and whatever. And but I think the consistent thing through all that is just baseball. Like, you get out there and you get in the game and you're not thinking about all the other stuff. You're just like in, on a diamond, and you kind of feel the same way you felt, whether it was high school or whatever it was. You're just playing baseball. Yeah.
No, I try to tell kids that too sometimes. Like I'll watch baseball when I get home with my little brother, and there's a couple guys in the Yankees that I've faced and gotten out, and I'm like, yeah, it's so cool. And then my brother's like, how'd you do it? I'm like, I'm telling you, they're literally just human beings. Like they're on TV and they make a lot more money than I do right now. But they're just, it's a human game. It's part of, there's a lot of mistakes that happen. There's a lot of guys that have hit home runs off me that I'm like, oh, that guy's made a lot of money. And there's a lot of guys that have hit home runs off me that I'm like, I don't know who's, they're not even playing anymore. And it's just part of it.
Yeah, definitely.
But then I see that, your sophomore year, you don't pitch anymore. Was there a conversation that happened where they like, wow, you have so much upside as an outfielder, as a hitter? Like, what the process kind of look like there? Yeah. Because I know that conversation can be hard for younger guys for sure.
It can be hard. It honestly was a decision that kind of got forced on all of us because I had a little bit of an elbow injury. I had some elbow stuff going on. Yeah. And the decision was, hey, let's not even worry about the mound. Like, let's just focus on making sure you can play every day in the outfield. Yeah. Which for me was a little bit of a bummer, but I had always been a two-way player, so I loved pitching, but I loved pitching when I was on the mound. Like I wasn't used to the practice. I don't know. The practice side of pitching as much. I throw bullpens.
There's a lot of monotonous stuff that you're learning about now.
The stuff that I'm getting back into now. Yeah. But yeah, they just decided, hey, let's just make sure you're good to go in the outfield. So coming back in the winter of my sophomore year, that decision was made and rolled from there. I had a decent sophomore year. Yeah. Went to Cape Cod, which was awesome.
What team did you play for?
Played with Katuitt.
Okay.
For Mike Roberts was my coach there, and I ended up having a really good summer.
Is he shorter guy?
Yeah.
I think the Pirates have him now.
Oh, really? He was a kind of base running.
Yes. He literally is just our base running coach. Yeah. He's the man. He's a great guy. I am a pitcher, so I never talk to him. But that's funny.
We had a great relationship. He's tough. He's a tough. Cape Cod is. There's a lot of pressure already built into that environment because you want to impress, and it's all the best players from here and there, and you see people that you've heard of and whatever. There's a lot of hype around it, and he is he's the kind of coach that if you show him that you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to, buy into what he's preaching, like he'll throw batting practice literally till his arm falls off, which is never because he could throw forever.
Yeah.
But I had an interesting summer. Like I got there, I wasn't playing right away. We had a couple guys who had been there before and who were higher prospects, and they were getting the at bats. And I was working on some things. I was still kind of figuring some stuff out, and he really helped me a lot with my swing that summer. And that was him showing up early every day and throwing batting practice all day long. And then eventually I got my opportunity, and this Cape's it's all summer, but I think it's 40 games, 40 games maybe.
Nothing too crazy.
And I ended up having a great summer there, which definitely helped me kind of launch myself for my junior year in the draft and all that.
Yeah, which that brings me to, I think, like the most important question I like to ask during these podcasts. For me, there's something called a if to when moment. Because your whole life, every kid is like, oh, that'd be so cool if I got drafted, if I got to play in the big leagues, if I play professionally, like that would be so cool. But it does happen at one point in time where your brain kind of goes, oh shit, like it's not if I get drafted, it's when I get drafted. Like this is coming, it's happening. This is definitely something that's part of my future. So did you have that moment in the Cape before then? Was it in high school? Because, I mean, going to Stanford, I'm sure you had, a little bit of pro attention already going into that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I had a little bit of interest in high school, for sure. I did did the area codes and some different stuff like that. And I had made it as soon as the draft started rolling around. I don't know where I would have gotten drafted had I just put myself in, whatever. But I had made it clear to anybody who asked that my intention was to go to school. Like as early as anybody was asking, I had said, I'm honored that you're even interested, but I'm going to Stanford. Like I want to
Stanford,
I want to go to school. It's important to me. It's important to my family. I'm going to go get my education and play baseball there. So I would say, that made it a little bit real of like, okay, like even if it is, any round, like I could hypothetically go play professionally.
We all know that, random round guy that like says like, hey, like sure, if you meet this number, and then teams come back and go, sure, we'll meet that number. You go, oh shit.
Yeah. My situation was never quite like that. Like I wasn't necessarily that kind of prospect out of high school. But then, I guess I would say getting on campus and being around guys who either had been drafted high or were,
you saw it in their future coming.
Like guys that I played with that were starting to be part of that process. And then especially after freshman year, you see the draft happen. You go, oh, wow, my teammate so-and-so gets drafted here and so-and-so gets drafted here. You start to play that game a little bit in your mind of like, damn, okay, like you look at their career and you think about what you could do and how you can get there. And I don't know, I guess seeing it firsthand makes it way more real and makes it feel way more attainable. So I guess getting on campus, and then for sure the Cape was another place that as I start talking to agents and start talking to scouts more and stuff like that, like it gets more real, and you kind of just fall into, I guess sometimes you forget to acknowledge that moment of like, damn, this is cool that it's changed from if to when, but you just kind of move straight to when.
Exactly.
But it
just kind of blends together sometimes.
Sometimes it kind of blends together.
But I mean, so you go to the Cape, and I'm, like you said, you did well. Then you come back to your junior year, and I checked out those numbers, and dude, you hit like fucking 315 with like 11 bombs, which is pretty great to do. Because there's a lot of people out there. I don't know how many games you guys ended up playing your junior year, but there's 30-ish games.
Well, we hosted a regional. We probably played like 55.
Oh wow!
Maybe.
Oh my god, that's a lot more.
Like that. I don't know.
Am I thinking that? I don't know why. Yeah, no, you're right. No, saying once you said 50 out loud, that made me realize that does make much more sense.
Close to 50. I think it's close.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it's 50. Yeah,
we played 55, 56, 57, somewhere in there.
Yeah. By the way, I mean 315 with 11 bombs. At this point, are you thinking, oh shit, top 10 rounds? Or?
Yeah, I was. Interestingly enough, I was thinking, I had a good year. I had a fine year. Like in my opinion, what was a fine year, but like I definitely didn't do as well as I had hoped, which is obviously all of us probably all the time.
That's a part of being an athlete. Yeah. You're always like, all right, I want to throw 100 today, and then you throw 90, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, no, there's that part of it. But yeah, I think I had thought that I didn't think it would be day one. I think I assumed it would be just based on what my agent had kind of been communicating with me and how the year had gone. I was fairly confident it would be day two sometime, and I was hoping early on day two, and it was early on day two, which was great.
Yeah, which is, I mean, really exciting. Third round, Mets come calling. Yeah. Were you hoping for the Mets? Were you hoping for a couple teams in the mix, or were you like, oh yeah, the Mets are going to take me early?
No, I hadn't really had any conversations with anybody, any team in particular that led me to believe it would be them versus somebody else. They were all fairly similar conversations. They try to get to know you. They try to figure out like what you're about. The Stanford guys have fairly or unfairly, I guess I'm biased, but I think I don't know what the statistics will tell you, but somewhat unfairly they get characterized as like, are you going to hang in there? Are you going to tough it out when times are you going to stick around when times get tough? Or are you going to pull the chute and go, get your banking job, your whatever job? Like that's what a lot of scouts will hit you with in those conversations, is like, how do we know you're going to stick around when things don't go so well? Because it's true. Like you have a really you have a very enticing fallback plan. Like guys,
Stanford education opens a lot more doors.
If you don't see the path baseball wise, and you have something in your back pocket that can change your life financially or whatever, like of course, like some guys are going to choose that option. And I think I've had the perfect mix of the ability to continue to do what I want to do because of obviously where I was drafted and the financials of that, and a supportive partner and family and all those kinds of things that have allowed me to continue to go for it.
Yeah. I don't know how much in the details you want to get into, but I mean, you hit for 5 seasons in the minor leagues and plenty of experience, plenty of at-bats. What's something you would kind of give to either a younger hitter that's about to enter this process or a younger guy that's getting ready to think about making this turn into pro ball? What's some stuff that you've learned as a hitter? Yeah,
I would say something that keeps coming back to me even now in my pitching journey, and even as current as today and tomorrow, like the stuff I'm doing right now, is really try to understand your strengths and like what makes you special, whether it's physically, the way your body moves, the way your things are put together, mentally, the cues that work, that have always kind of worked for you, even if some cues work for a little bit and they go away, as we all know. But basically, like, try to know your foundation of what makes you unique. And for all of us if anybody in pro ball has had enough success to have something that has made them successful, like even probably anyone who's played any level of college baseball, you've had to have had enough success to put yourself at that level. Really knowing that before you try to be a version of somebody else or something else. Like as a hitter, I found myself, I don't regret anything. I wouldn't do anything any differently than I did, because it was always with the intention of trying to be the best player that I could possibly be. But I think there were times that I almost went too quickly to the next thing of like, okay, let me try to learn this, whether it's this style of hitting or whatever, or these mechanics or this drill, without making sure that my foundation was sturdy, of like, okay, this is unorthodox or not, or mechanically perfect or not, like this is what makes me. and let me make sure I don't lose that as I'm trying to add these other things.
Yeah.
Make sure this is still sturdy.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's not a straightforward thing to do. Like that requires a lot of, I don't know, self-reflection, introspection.
I mean, we talked a little bit about it the other day about how you go like let me try this like one feel, and you're like, oh shit, that worked, or you're like, oh shit, that was terrible, I'm never doing that again. Either one happens. I'd still do those every single day. I have that notebook that I constantly am writing stuff down in, because I'm like, oh wow, that feel was nice. Like, let me try to keep this rolling, and then you kind of just build that from one thing into another. And it's I feel like it's like running science experiments.
Yeah, exactly.
You test something, it works, great.
Yeah,
you do
you
some
have a hypothesis and you try that out, and kind of works, kind of doesn't. But
that's how you know you went to Stanford, because you said hypothesis. I said try stuff.
That's the difference right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Just a fancy way of saying try stuff.
Yeah. But so yeah, I the biggest thing that I wanted to bring you on for, though, was to talk about the really interesting transformation that you got to go through. And was this 22, right? This is 20. 22. You're in Syracuse in AAA, right? Mm-hmm. And then what happens? Tell me what happens.
Yeah, so at the time I was in Syracuse. That year I had started in Syracuse, went back to Binghamton, then back to Syracuse, then became a pitcher. So tell
me about how that conversation goes.
Yeah, I
just sit you down. This farm director, what happens?
Yeah. So I'd kind of been bouncing back and forth. I was sort of that guy that I was really struggling, and I was not enough of a prospect anymore to get the at bats in AA, and I was the guy that had the experience and could slot in AAA if they needed a guy. Like, I could be that for that, whatever. It's kind of in that role, and I had been in Syracuse, really struggled, went down to Binghamton, struggled, started to figure it out a little bit, got called back up to Syracuse to fill in, and continued to have some success. Felt like I was getting back to things that were more true to myself and that were more sustainable, whatever, for performance. And you can kind of see Sunday is always a very scary day because rosters are moving around, especially when you're that guy that gets moved around a lot. And in AAA, things move around a ton just because of injuries up and down with the big leagues. Like, things move around every week, pretty much. Things shift around. So got called in on a Sunday, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Sunday. And I thought, all right, I'm going back down to Binghamton. Fine. Like, I'll just kind of keep rolling, stay hot. Like, can hopefully figure it out the rest of this year, whatever. And then they just said, hey, like, what do you think about? It was the manager who I had a good relationship with, and he had been my manager in AA and then also in AAA, and he had been our field coordinator at one point. And he just basically said, hey, like, what do you think about pitching? And I was like, oh shit, like, that's not where I was expecting this conversation to go. Yeah. No, it wasn't on my radar at all. And he pretty much said like you're probably going to get released here pretty soon, but before that, like, we wants to give you the opportunity to get on the mound if that's something you want to do. And so he said, take your time with this decision. Like, let's just go think about it, talk about it with your agent, whoever you need to talk to. But just try to someone's going to be in touch. Like, you got to let us know by whenever. And so I talked to my agent and everybody, and this was right before the draft. This was me not having particularly good stats for a little while. So it just seemed unlikely that I could find a job. If I did take my release, that I would find a job elsewhere. Yeah. Teams aren't adding guys before the draft. I wasn't someone that they would necessarily be eager to add in those circumstances. So decided hey, I'm left-handed. Let's see if I can just kind of catch lightning in a bottle on the mound, and let's give it a shot. And so I eventually told them yes, and I drove down to St. Lucie and spent the rest of the year trying to just get comfortable to the mound, basically, which was a month or two or something like that.
Was that pretty intimidating, or was? Tell me about that first bullpen, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are like, oh god, like, I don't even know what's gonna happen right now. Or were you like, dude, I'm gonna throw the shit out of the ball? Like, what were you thinking?
I was probably somewhere in between. I would say my arm was not feeling fantastic when I did. They got us on the mound pretty quickly. I actually ended up being doing this alongside one of my other teammates. They did it with him at the same time.
Oh wow.
Manny Rodriguez, who you might have played against at some point.
Name rings a bell.
He was a middle infielder. He's a righty, but we'd played together forever, so it was honestly kind of nice to have someone who was one of my buddies that was like, all right, let's go do this thing. And the best part, I don't remember my first bullpen. I think I just was like, just throwing it, like I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. But the funniest part about it is I was using my outfitter's glove because I didn't have a pitching glove, and there was no. I'm sure there were lefties down there, but like there was no one I really knew. And eventually, one of my buddies who was in rehab, who was a lefty, he's like, "Dude, use my glove." I was like, "All right, cool." And then I got one, but yeah, it was weird. I mean, I hadn't been on the mound since 2015 or whatever it was.
Freshman year of college, right?
Yeah, so it had been a really long time.
Do you know how hard you were throwing back then?
In high school and college?
Yeah.
Shoot, I mean, on a bad day, probably anywhere from bad day to good day, probably anywhere from 88 to 90. I think I might have hit a 93, maybe a 94.
Fuck. That's awesome. I mean, at 18 years old, though, to do that from the left side, that's fucking crazy to do. Especially back then. Like, I try to like put things, whenever I talk about like my high school experience, I try to put things back in frame of like 2015. Dude, no, guys throwing mid-90s, there was like a handful of those in each bullpen in the big leagues. Now it's like you don't sniff the big leagues unless you're doing stuff like that, or if you're doing something weird like me.
You gotta be funky. Yeah, you gotta be funky. Yeah, so I could throw hard at times, but I think I was probably mostly around 90, and I think I was somewhere around there in my first pen. I was probably like 90, 91 maybe. Yeah. So I was encouraged. It looked, I of course jumped right to seeing what it looked like on film, and it looked a little funky, and like I was not comfortable yet because I knew, basically I am still, but like I know what it feels like throwing someone out of the plate. Like when I really let one rip, like I know what that feels like and how that looks come out of my hand and what it feels like coming out of my hand, and I haven't quite had that same feeling on the mound. Definitely not at that time. It just felt like a totally different throw, which it is. I mean, it totally is. Like from the outfield, I'm running into it.
Running through that and being able to just let it eat. Totally God.
Yeah, it's totally different. So it was fun. I experienced a little bit of arm trouble, fatigue, like once I was down there after a couple pens and had to pump the brakes a little bit, so that was not fun. But they decided to bring me back. I didn't know, honestly, if they were just going to release me in the off season or if they were going to see this through to give me a chance to actually compete. Because I threw pens and I threw one live BP down there. And it was fine. Like, it was fine. It wasn't like insane, but I was 90 plus from the left side, which is serviceable. Like it's.
Oh my! I mean,
it's fine. Like
that's good. That's very, very good.
It can play. Like it could play, and I was like, all right, I think I can improve this. I think it can get better. And that off season was fine. Like I just had, again, just some, as I'm sure we all do, like some working through some things arm wise. It just didn't quite feel right, and figuring out how to, try to get the feel that I want. And then they brought me to spring training, which was great. And
tell me about those first spring training innings.
Yeah, the first one.
Did you get a couple rolls? Roll it.
I don't know if I had any rollers, honestly.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if I got rolled. I don't know if I did.
Sweet.
Maybe in like a live BP, but that doesn't. I don't know if that counts.
It's a live BP. You're just kind of going. For people that don't know, roll it refers to when you're doing a spring training game on the backfield and you're doing terrible and the coach has just seen enough and you're at like 25, 30 pitches for the inning and they just go roll it and everyone just walks off the field. It's so...
As a position player, it's great.
Yeah. Like, yes. As a pitcher, you're like, oh, God damn it, man.
Couldn't get through the inning, yeah. So I think I had a couple lives that were fine, but live is just different. Feels different. Yeah. And then my first outing against another team was down in Jupiter against the Marlins. And one of my best friends from Stanford, best friends to this day, is he plays for the Marlins, and he was not pitching that day, but he was there, which was awesome that he got to watch me throw. But I was nervous as shit. Like I was getting ready, and like It went fine. I think I don't remember exactly how it went. But I definitely got a couple of outs. Like I think I don't know if I might have given up a hard hit ball, and like I don't think I walked anybody, but
it wasn't anything crazy. Yeah.
It was
Was there
down the middle, like normal.
Was there a lot of like just? Did you feel like you were looking around going, dude, what the fuck am I doing right now?
Oh yeah, I felt really uncomfortable. Like I felt extremely just like weird on the mound, on the field. Like I'm just so not used to being in that spot on the field and being like in that box, like in that doing that. So it felt really weird, and it honestly continued to for most of this past year. Like it's just so weird being in like sitting in the bullpen and then getting on the mound and then getting in the game, and like you're just confined to this little, and
You're on that rubber and you're not going anywhere else.
and you could be in there for 1 minute if you're finishing an inning and you get 1 out or 2 outs and you're like, all right, my day's done.
Yeah, it's over before you blink.
But I'm used to 3-ish hours of focus with like little pockets of more heightened focus when I'm either ball's coming my way or I'm in the box or whatever. So it was just a really different experience of baseball. And I've also never been a PO. So even when I was pitching back in the day, back in the day when I was a pitcher, like I'd be in the lineup. I'd still be hitting. Even at Stanford when I pitched, I'm pretty sure every time I pitched, like I was in the lineup. Like even if I was relieving, like I would come out of the outfield, warm up for a second, come in to pitch, stay in my spot. I don't remember how they would manipulate the lineup.
Yeah.
So just doing that and then sitting on the bench and like not doing anything else it's a very different, like it feels like a different game, honestly.
I'm personally a huge fan of short relief outings followed by a lot of sitting down doing nothing. I love those. You're like, I'm done already? Hell yeah. Good luck. Good luck, guys.
Not there yet.
But even hearing you talking about though, like how like different it is, and like I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, dude, I felt different when I just dropped down. Like I can't imagine just going to stand in the outfield like all of a sudden, like just completely change my game like that. That's even more eye opening.
It's definitely it's an adjustment. It's it really does feel like I'm doing something totally different. Like it's still baseball, which I love, and there's parts of it that feel the same. But it's definitely even just the day to day. Like as a pitcher, you can't go in a cage for early work. You can't go you can't lift every day. Like you can't really have a routine that way, especially as a reliever. It's harder to have your gym routine.
Dude, as a starting pitcher, I freaking loved that I could plan out my lift, my bullpen, my throwing for each day. Like I knew everything that I was doing. The 2019 season, I knew everything I was doing every single day of the week. Like I knew when my next bullpen was and when my next start was, and like those are the only two things that were on my mind. And then I would watch and scout, and it was so much easier. But as a reliever, it's definitely a lot more of like just, oh shit, I'm in the game.
I might be in today. I can't throw as much, but I need to get some work in. Like I haven't been on the mound. Like, especially for me, I was trying to accumulate experience on the mound. So there was a period of time where I had been feeling terrible, and I was just kind of like, I need to get on the mound more. Like I need to get more, because even just throwing like a touch and feel for me didn't do anything. Just because it didn't feel at all the same as the game. Like I wasn't experienced enough to have that be valuable where I could just feel my pitches the right way or whatever. Like I needed to feel closer to game speed, which is tough because then I started throwing off the mound more, and then I was really fatigued, like not feeling gas by the time the game rolled around. So that was like playing that game of how much to throw, and the day to day. Even the end game is one thing that's totally different. But the day-to-day was very different because I was someone who, as a hitter, like I love my routines. I love getting in, like my weight room routine, all that stuff, cage routine. Like, all right, I don't feel great. Let me go get a couple extra hacks, which, sometimes it's probably counterproductive, but I liked being able to do that. Can't go throw more if you're not feeling great. Like, you
got to just hang it up and go lay down.
Yeah, exactly,
I mean, you go through your first full season. Well, first we trained at ATP. That's how we initially met each other. Shout out to Josh Heenan, Brian, Ryan, Luke, BK, Padilla, all the guys there. We love training there. But you go through your first full season, and you got to live my dream of playing in Brooklyn and then living in Manhattan. I've always wanted to do that. I think that's the coolest thing ever.
It's a close second to playing at Citi Field and
obviously. Okay, yes, obviously that would be better playing in the big leagues, but like being able to do that probably was an absolute blast. And then it was a lot of fun just seeing you randomly one day in Double A. I didn't even expect it. I just look up and it's the 9th inning. I'm like, oh, all right, they got a lefty out there. Oh, fuck, it's Quinn.
Yeah, that was fun. No, this year was fun. Being in Brooklyn was unique for sure. I started my career there in 2017 when it was short season, so a lot of the same faces and like same vibe. But living in Manhattan and commuting down to the field most days. I stayed down in Coney Island sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, being able to be like home and then going to play was a totally weird thing. Like sometimes it was great, but also like I'm like kind of in real life and can like kind of see my friends, but also I'm not like I don't know. I don't want to get out of my like routine. I don't know. Yeah. I'm a routine person, so like it felt a little weird to be like.
It was like blending. It was blending the two worlds together.
Yeah, it was this weird gray area. But yeah, then getting up, and that was honestly fun. I think that was where Altoona was where I joined the team. So that was fun to have my first outing there, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, looking on the back on the year, like, I think how many games did you end up having in Double A? I think it was like
a couple series. I mean, not
yeah. It was like 3-4 outings, right?
3 series, maybe 2 series. Yeah, it was 3 or 4 outings.
Yeah. And like looking at your numbers, like I think if I look back on my numbers through my first like 2-3 games in Double A, I think they were like worse. It was so like I was like I don't know what to do. Like I can't. I had become a reliever. I was just thrown in Double A. I had COVID like 2 weeks before that. Like I was still very like trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. Yeah. And my numbers were terrible, and like it's hard to be expected to be thrown into the upper levels like that when it comes to pitching, because it's just hitters their toes are on the plate. They know what they're looking for. They know what you're gonna throw, and if you miss it by a little bit, you're in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got exposed a little bit.
I think it's more of a like your numbers in high A are good, especially as a reliever. Like. I think the most important thing that I want, other people, I want them to listen to this, but I want you to listen to this more importantly. Like, you just need time. Like, you haven't done this since freshman year of college. Like, to go out there and have that level of success you did great. Like, you did great, man.
Say that.
Yeah. And now it's just about getting more experience, which is going to be a challenge, but I'm excited to see what kind of goes. What happens next.
Yeah, me too. No, I totally agree. It's you like anything, you just got to learn by doing, and you get thrown into it and you just adapt. Like some things work, some things don't work, and yeah, the jump was definitely, I'd say nowadays too, with the consolidation of the minor leagues, like the jump from high to Double A is probably where you're gonna feel it might be like the biggest. I don't know if it's the biggest jump, but it's a big jump. It's a bigger jump than when I had first made that jump. I mean, now you're going from high A where most of my team was guys in their first full season.
Yeah,
that was not the case when I got drafted. Like that, you started in. Most guys started.
You started in rookie ball. I started in the GCL.
A lot of guys just had their first full season in rookie ball, and like I had my first full season in low A, and I didn't get the high until whenever. But yeah, you go from basically guys in their younger guys' first full season nowadays to Double A, which is guys that are more refined. Like some guys have been there for a minute, some guys are up and down, Triple A, Double A. Like guys are kind of all over the place.
I'm going for my senior year this year in Double A. Exactly. Did you have a favorite outing you had this year on the mound?
Favorite outing I had this year?
You had a couple saves.
Yeah. No, I definitely did have a favorite outing. I'm trying to I think it was at. Yeah, definitely. I did a few saves. I don't remember any of like the most high leverage ones. I don't know. I feel like I'm. I don't know if my memory's bad or if I am unique as a like an outlier from an athlete standpoint. But like I don't remember individual like innings and outings and batters and like I don't remember like I feel like I have some team.
I feel what you mean.
Who are like, oh yeah, against this team on this day in this inning with this we were down by this and like I have never as a hitter as a pitcher like I can't remember that stuff. I remember like generally like the feeling around it, but I don't know. I don't remember. Oh, we were playing this team and it was this situation. These three guys came up and I don't know. There are definitely a couple where there were a few outings where I felt good and things were sharp and. It's fun when you feel in control. Like when you feel like you're kind of on the attack. There are some outings like that feel good, and then there's other ones where you might get out of it completely unscathed with a good line, but you're like, geez, I was kind of on my heels the whole time.
You're like, oh great, 3 line drives to my shortstop and I'm out of it. That's all I needed.
Sheesh, I felt like shit. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Is there anything else you want to kind of cover before we wrap this up? Yeah, last question I like to ask everybody is, all right, you get to go back in time, talk to 15-year-old Quinn. What's some advice you're giving him, something you're kind of guiding him with, anything? What do you got for 15-year-old Quinn?
I would definitely reiterate what I said earlier about know yourself and your strengths and add to that. Don't try to create a new version of yourself. There are very few guys that I've seen that can completely recreate themselves, and as you know, like you're trying to move in an entirely different way. Like it's really hard, especially at any age, honestly. It's really hard to break movement patterns, like it's really hard to teach yourself to move totally differently. Like it's little things nuanced here and there and certain feels that might not even look any different. Like I'm sure you've done that where you're like, oh yeah, that was great. You're like, that's the exact same as how I've been throwing always. Like, like that happens all the time. So I would say know what your special sauce is and like make sure that that's something that we're all going to always be trying to get better, of course, all the time. Like that's what drives pretty much every athlete, I would imagine. And in that you can go too far and you can get away from like what actually made you good, and then it can be hard to get back there. So I'd say know that for sure. I would say don't forget to have fun. Like it can be very fun. That's something that I really admire about you and like guys like you that are fun to be around and like that bring the fun and like keep things light and like and still get their work in and still care. Like it's there are times that I, and again, wouldn't do it any other way because that's just how I am and how I chose to go about things. But there are times that I think forgot, like, this is a game. This is just is what it is. Like you're gonna have success, you're gonna have failure, but enjoy. Like don't be afraid to enjoy it. Don't be afraid to let it be fun. Even when it is a job and there's pressure and there's expectations and there's your own expectations and everything. Don't be afraid to let it be fun. And similarly to that, like focus sometimes, like turn your focus outwards on your teammates. Like it's really easy to, especially in pro ball when it's so different than college ball. Like I'm sure as you feel. Oh yeah. It's really easy to, not that it's a selfish thing, but it's about how you're playing the game or anything like that. But it's a much more isolated. It can be a much more isolating experience because guys move up and down and over and left. Yeah. Like it's not that same like unit of like team. Let's win the game. Let's be a team. Like that kind of thing.
I feel like it becomes much more like, all right, well, this is my ERA, this is my batting average, this is my like. You lose that team vibe. That it's nothing better than when you feel like the whole team is pulling in that one direction of trying to win, of trying to be the best team out there. Something that I like to tell myself a lot and like to constantly remind myself because I think it is the most important thing. If you make going to the field about everybody else besides you, your time there becomes so much easier. Yeah. Yes, there are other things. There is your lift, there is your running, there is your throwing program. Like that stuff, absolutely have intent and focus in that. But the rest of your time, like I try to make the time easier for my teammates or for my coaches or for especially the fans. Like in Altoona, we have some very loyal fans that are in the same seats every day, and I always try to say hello to them. I always try to make their day brighter. And by doing that, I've learned myself like it's so much easier to do it that way.
I think that's well said. I totally agree. Like I've found that I've never had more fun at the field or left the field with a better feeling than when I do the random fan experience things that you got to sign up for, like that no one wants to sign up for, or when I, maybe it's a day that I'm not playing and I choose to, the same way that I'd say all the, that can say all these shitty things to myself about when things aren't going well. Like I try to find someone who's I see someone who's having a tough day. One of my buddies and you just say something nice, like you say something nice, and I'm like, damn, why can't I say that to myself? Like I just told this guy, like, yo, your swing looks good, you're right on it, you're right there, keep going, you're so close, like, and I mean it, saying it to him, like I know it's gonna make him feel better. Like why can't I say it to myself? But more importantly, it feels good to say that to other people and to be that person. It was easy for me to have things turn inward and just be like focused on me and the thing that I got to figure out and fix this and like how to do that and whatever, get back to whatever. But when you make it, when you turn it around and make it about other people, I think it's a more pleasant experience for yourself, and I think it's more pleasant for everybody else.
100%, man. 100%. I think that's a great place to end on. Is there any socials you want to shout out? Like where can people find you?
I'm not on Instagram, so you can't find me there. I'm really.
All right, he's a ghost. He's a ghost.
You can find me in person wherever I am, I guess. Yeah.
In person. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks for having me.